So today we are making Japanese hair sticks out of old paintbrushes. I found that when I went on Amazon that a lot of the Japanese hair sticks that I was looking for were really overpriced. They were like $25, and I know that doesn't seem like a lot, but I'm super cheap. I found some as low as $2 or like even $11, and those were just, you know, really crappy plastic, whatever. But I found that these are really easy to make, and all around the supplies were really cheap. If you already have a set of pliers, maybe some beads you've had since you were like 11 or something like that, this actually turned out to be a very cheap project. The only thing I really had to spend money on was the wire, of course, and the stain I used to stain the wood for the stick. But other than that, I found that this project was really simple, really easy, and really cheap to do overall. And I could get it done within a matter of like 2 days. I had to wait for the stain to dry up and so that I could, you know, restain it. But other than that, I thought it took, you know, not that long of a time. And I really enjoyed how I had endless possibilities with this. I kind of like went a little crazy in the craft store trying to figure out what I wanted to do. But I thought overall I loved the way these turned out. If you can see right here, I have the 3 that I made. I have one that's kind of for everyday use, more of a formal one, that's the tree. And then something really fun for summer with a little tassel. I'll show you later in the video how I made the tassel. But for the tree, unfortunately, my camera died before I could get some shots of it. But I do have a little sneak peek of how I basically assembled it. Without further ado, let's get started.
Okay, so the first thing you're going to need is a water bottle, sandpaper, wood finish, also known as wood stain, and then also some clear gloss to go over that as well. I'll put a link in the description box below to the products that I used, some pliers, a brush, and then some wood paintbrushes, these are the sticks, and some wire. Your first step is to pull off the metal that's around the paintbrush with the pliers. And then now what we're doing is taking our P60, P60 sandpaper and filing off all the paint, making sure that none of the blue paint is left and we can't see anything. Also, what I'm doing is I'm filing it down to the shape I want. On the larger end, I want to round it out, and then on the point where we're going to stick it through our hair, I want to keep it relatively flat on both sides, but I also want it to have a rounded edge. So I'll put a picture right here. That's kind of like what you want it to look like so that it pierces the hair nicely. It doesn't have to be completely flat on both sides. I just like to have it sort of flat and then kind of smoothing out into the rounder edge of the circle. And now what we're doing is simply filing it down with our P220 sandpaper, making sure that it's nice and smooth so that it is ready to be stained. Okay, so the reason we have our water bottle is we're going to use this as a stand to hold up our hair stick. I'm taking a piece of wire about 8 inches long and wrapping the tip of one end around the edge of my stick, and then I am taking the other end and wrapping it around the neck of my water bottle. Okay, so now when you're dyeing your stick, basically what you're going to do is brush up and down. Super simple. Just try not to get it everywhere like I did. That really sucked. However, once you're done with that, you can just stick it into that little stand we made earlier and then clean up the edges a little bit. I did that with my brush. You can clearly see the difference between the two. This one has a nice smooth finish, while this one looks a little bit splotchy. So after letting it settle for 15 minutes, I'm just going to roll it in this napkin to get rid of all the extra stain. I also use my napkin to wipe up and down with the grain to get rid of extra stain as well. Make sure not to go around or inside because you really want to prevent any splotchiness. Okay, so after letting the stain dry for a minimum of 8 hours, I'm taking my clear gloss and I am just wiping it up and down the stick, making sure that I get it nice and smooth, nice and even. Once we're done, we need to let it dry for about 3 to 4 hours in our little makeshift stand. One thing you can do is just add beads to the end. I just did this by super gluing the end of the bead as well as the stick and then just pressing it together till it comes out something a little bit like this. You can do anything you really want with it. Okay, so to make the tassel, all I did was I took embroidery floss as well as a fork, and I took a long piece and pressed my thumb up against the fork and wrapped it around the first 3 prongs of the fork. I did this about 15 times, and then I tied the 2 ends of the string together. Next thing I did was I took my jump ring, I opened it up with my pliers, and I stuck it in between the threads so that it held everything nice together. And then I took my wire and I wrapped it around the thread really tight so that nothing would fall out. Secure the wire by pressing it down with your pliers and then simply push the tassel off of the fork and trim the ends of the tassel so that it has a nice little finish. Alright, and that's it for the tassels. I had a lot of fun making them, so I kind of got a little carried away and made like 7. But as for the stick that goes with it, I didn't quite get video for it, but basically all I did was the same thing I did for the first hair stick. I glued down the bead and then I just wrapped wire around that as well and glued it so it was nice and secure. And then I just stuck the tassel in by attaching it to a jump ring and then attaching that jump ring to a bent piece of metal that I kind of jammed into the top of the bead. So unfortunately, as mentioned at the beginning of the video, I was unable to get video of how I made the tree at the end of my, more formal hair stick. Basically, all I did was I took 8 to 12 pieces of, I would probably say around 10 inches of wire, and then I twisted them together. As I went along, I began to separate the wires to make each individual branch, and then once those wires were separated, all I did was I attached my beads, and those were kind of like my flowers. Once the top of my tree was done, all I had to do was make the roots. How I did this was I separated the wires and kinked them with my pliers so that they looked a little bit more like roots. And then I took a spare wire and I wrapped it around the roots and the stick so that it was held very closely and that it wouldn't budge at all while I was drying. Once my glue was dry, all I had to do was unravel my spare wire and the roots were nice and secured to the base of my stick.
Okay, so those were the final products. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know I had so much fun making them. Leave a comment down below if you made anything cool or interesting that wasn't shown in the video. I would really love to see that. Anyway, that's all for today's video, but before I go, I'd like to show you how I wear these really cool hair sticks.
Yeah.